Welcome back to Brick Wall Breakdowns. I'm Max Dean, and I am here with the star of the show, Kyron Samuels. Kyron is our offensive line expert here at Defiant Takes Football. After having spent time in Division One, he played professionally in the AFL, earned all AFL honors. He's played both guard and center extensively. So he's here to help us break down a player from Week One's NFL action. Kyron, how you doing today?
Doing well today, man, and I'm excited about this one because I've been singing this guy's praises for about 3 years now, and I think he's made the transition to being the best in his respective position. He's not the most notable if we
Mm-hmm.
talk about star power or image, or he's not the most visible guy, but I felt like this guy has been one of the best, if not the best, for a while, and I think the position group is fighting for the number one position, so I'm excited to get into this team.
For sure. And the thing about this for me is that, I watch film, but I don't always really focus on the offensive line, right? You watch these guys when you're watching everybody else. But when I prepare the tape for this, I'm really trying to find the clips that I think exemplify what these players can do. And so, that's a lot of scrubbing back and forth. And I just it forces me to take the time to do something that I wouldn't otherwise do. And I think that makes me a more knowledgeable football enthusiast as it is. So I kind of appreciate that I set this up for my own education as well. So the guy that we're talking about today is Frank Ragnow. He is the center for the Detroit Lions. Went in the first round of the 20, probably should have pulled this up, but I think 2016 draft, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's been there for a while now. He's
Yeah.
been doing this thing for a while now. Arkansas guy.
Yep. So we are going to be looking at the season opener against the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to be looking at a couple of his plays. So he's on the bigger side for his center at 6'5", 311. There are not that many tall dudes like this playing center. Sometimes it's just a leverage thing. It's an ability to snap the ball and then get up into your stance quickly enough. But he is certainly plenty good at that, so no worries there. But it's just a position that generally calls for a guy who's, I don't know, what would you say the average was without looking it up? Maybe 6'2" or
Probably like
so, something like
6'2"
that.
to 6'3". I mean, that's probably the sweet spot there. And it's mostly
Hmm.
just like you said, a leverage thing. And a lot of big guys aren't able to squat like that. Like it's a difference between being a center and having to be square and having a good base and really being a knee bender than being out on the edge or even at guard. When you can kind of change up your sets, you can be a lot more high. You can have your chest up. It's just a totally different ball game athletically if we're talking about bending as well. So you don't see a lot of tall guys, but I believe Creed Humphrey is one of those guys. He's 6'5", 6'4" and a half as well. There's a couple now that's kind of making that transition, but for the most part, I probably feel like 25. I don't know this to be true, but I probably say about 25 to 27 of those guys are between 6'1" and 6'4".
Hmm. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense as a 6'2" lanky person myself. A lot of the stuff that's just built for everyday. Now, I'm not a professional athlete, obviously, but a lot of the stuff that's just built for the average person, doing it repeatedly or for a long period of time, it's not the easiest thing to do to kind of hunt yourself down. So a lot of respect for his ability to do that. So aside from that little introduction, is there anything that you want to talk about as far as Ragno before we jump into the tape?
Oh no, and I'm ready to get into the tape, man. Let's hop into it. And like I said, I think he's one of the best in the NFL. I think he's the best center in the NFL right now, and that's no shade to anybody else because this guy's just that good in my opinion. He's been this consistent, and then when you factor in his size and the kind of uncanniness of how big and tall he is for the position, I think he gives it a little bit more juice. So I'm excited to watch the tape.
So here we go. The interesting thing about this that I noticed, aside from just himself, is, so full disclosure, we're going to be doing Penny Sewell next. So we have two Lions offensive linemen back to back. And as I was going through all of this line plays together so well. Like sometimes I even found it kind of challenging to select plays that really highlighted Ragnow because he works in tandem so well with the two guards that sometimes it's like, well, am I isolating him? And it's hard to do that because some of it is just how well he communicates and how uh, fluid he is between those two players. And I think even the right side itself, from center to right tackle, all three of those guys play together really, really well. But here's our first play, and you can tell us what you see here.
Well, yeah, I mean, just normal, base alignment here. You're playing a normal 4-3 defense, and you have, a tight shade, you got a three technique, and this is just a regular zone play. But the thing about him is that for his size and his, 6'5", being in the middle, having to bend and not being able to have any advantage with his feet in terms of alignment and being able to get out, it's just amazing how well he processes and diagnoses while on the move. So this is not an easy block. I mean, you're going to be one-on-one with the linebacker. You have to climb to the second level. There's nothing in your play side gap because you have a three technique who's playing the guard head up. The shade isn't bleeding in the gap where you need to give a little bit of help backside. So his eyes are right on 32 from the start. The 32 gets a little bit of help, kind of bleeding back a little bit, but it's still amazing how fast he gets up on the linebacker here. And this is not a big gain or anything, but just watch Ragnow. We're diagnosing him as a player.
Exactly.
Just look at the athletic ability, and so you can go ahead and play it. Watch how he protects his gap first. The first step he does, boom, he's already looking at his gap. He knows where he needs to go. He sees the gap and nothing in the gap. He shoots his head right up and gets right on the linebacker. There's no wasted movement. And I think that's something that a lot of offensive linemen struggle with. And it doesn't have to be a lot. We're talking about one or two extra steps. So just play it from the start here. If he bleeds over to the left, if he continues pushing play side for one or two more steps, boom. So if he goes another 2 steps from there, then 32 has the backside lane. He can spill behind him, and he'll probably never get there. And 32 undercuts him and has a chance to get in on the play. But just knowing when to get up, processing, and that's what I talk about, processing, his ability to diagnose and see what he needs to see, and then boom, get up right there on the linebacker, and then be physical with them. Like, that stuff builds up over 4 quarters. So one of the more impressive things I see from him. Like I said, it's not a huge gain or anything. I mean, it's the NFL. They got 8 men in the box. They're backed up. I mean, they're on their -9 here, but still, it's just the attention to detail that he has and the athleticism that he has.
So just in the spirit of education here, this play is really well blocked for the most part. Number 54 does get up on Sewell before he really gets a good block on him, but that's not the most impactful part of the play from a defensive standpoint. It's 50, Willie Gay here, getting in this gap right here. And so I think what's supposed to happen is number 45 here, the fullback is supposed to take on Willie Gay, and he thinks he's going into the B gap there, but he cuts back into the A gap. Is that why there's a TFL, or is it that the running back is supposed to go into the B gap and he thinks he sees an opening and reads it wrong?
Well, the way they're blocking it, I don't think it's midline. I don't think it's supposed to hit on the inside. Everybody's pressing hard. It looks like everybody's aiming point is the outside via the neck, which is that's just offensive line talking. And the via the neck is the shoulder pad where you're looking at. You want to hit the outside via that neck and get your hat play side. It looks like everybody's reaching that way. So I wouldn't say that he was supposed to. The running back was supposed to cut it back. But I mean, if you see the guys in the gap play side, I mean, there's a little hole. The NFL. Everything is so deceptive. I hate when people post those screenshots and it looks like a gap's wide open. But no, these are the best athletes in the world, and it's going to be closed within a second. So I wouldn't say this is on anybody in particular here. You got 8-man box. You got, I believe, 6 or 7 to block them. The quarterbacks, you can't account for the quarterback because it's not an RPO. It's not a read. This is a handoff all the way. This is just a numbers game here. And I think you just live to fight another down.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. But I think the particular reason that I wanted to highlight this play is see how well he gets off the ball. So he takes 1, 2, and in those 2 steps, like you said, he's protecting his gap first, perfectly squared up to the line of scrimmage, looking back at the man that he does anticipate needing to block, and then how that's he's got at least a few yards before contact and then creates movement as well. Just from an athleticism and size standpoint, that's not an easy thing to do. All right. Okay, here's the next play.
All right. So to me, we can go back a little bit from the beginning. To me, this is the way I was taught football, the way I've been taught to identify. To me, this would be a 3-man front here. You got a zero nose, both guards are uncovered, and both tackles are covered. So to me, this is just a three-man front. You have an overhang. 54 is going to be the overhang. So I don't know how they exactly describe it, but this is the way I've been taught to process and taught to view the game of football. So to me, that changes a little bit of your principles here off the rip, especially as a center, because I played center a lot, especially in my career. I moved inside to play center from guard the last 4 years. So it's a totally different ball game when you have a zero nose. You have somebody right on top of you. Everything is faster. It's already really fast in the middle. But you have to be even more quick with your snap, popping that outside hand, whatever your offhand is, to get a little bit of just. You have to stop the defensive lineman's feet a little bit to be able to move. Even if it's a pass set, even if you're trying to reach them, base block them, whatever the case is, unless he's going to hard slant either way, you got to be really fast with that hand and that opposite foot. So this is just automatically going to be looking for a different ability here when you're playing the zero nose. So I had to point that out because it's especially different for centers.
Yeah, for sure. And the Chiefs don't do a ton of zero nose stuff. They certainly don't do a lot of odd front stuff. All right, let's let it run through here.
Boom. So you get the zero nose goes away immediately, and it looks like, hey, this they know what side the strength is. This is where they're sliding to. So he knows when it goes away. It looks like they're in a half slide. The entire offensive lineman here from the right guard over and sliding left. Looks like the back is going to make you right on this one. So they're sliding left. He doesn't panic. He doesn't over pursue. He just boom picks it up, puts it down. That's another offensive lineman turn. Boom, picks up that left foot, puts it down. So you don't want to overextend, or you don't want to not get over and give him a lane to spill through. So just technically sound, man. It's just the little details that he's so good at and he's so consistent with. Just picks it up, puts it down, picks up 51 slanting inside, and they just make it right, man. Like you said, this offensive line plays together. Last year to end the season, I didn't have them in my top 5 to begin the season, but to end last season, I had this group number 3. And I started off this season having them at number 3 as well. But I mean, listen, after that first week, man, just watching everybody else around the league, even the Eagles, I think the Eagles are still, just out of respect, you have to give them number 1. But I'm not sure there's another offensive line better than this Detroit Lions offensive line right now. They're just so in sync, and they're just so comfortable. Nobody's pressed. Nobody's over pursuing. Nobody's oversetting. You don't get a lot of these silly penalties. They're just really good, man. They're just in sync, and I really love the way they play together.
Yeah, I mean, you got him here in center, and then he has his hand outreached in case he needs help, in case the right guard needs help against the zero tech. But he's already looking over to his left side where he knows the man count is basically dictating that he helps protect over there. And then there is absolutely no hesitation, no confusion from either the left guard or Ragnow in terms of the D end jumping inside to the A gap, or I guess B gap, but no A gap. So no confusion, perfectly handled there. You got Thornhill safety in the box coming down into the B, and so just perfectly handled. And then got a really strong grip there, even though he tries to jump for the block on the quick pass, holds him in place, doesn't allow him to impact that play, and then you got Amon-Ra St. Brown cruising down the field already, and he's still maintaining contact with the guard, like just playing to the whistle.
Yeah, he does a great job with hand positioning too. That's I wouldn't say half the battle, but it's a large part of the battle as an offensive lineman. Getting your hands where they're supposed to be. If your hands are on the inside, you can get on the breastplate of that defensive lineman. You're going to be in a good position more times than not. And Frank Ragnow he does a great job of getting his hands where they need to be. But going to the next clip here, you're back to your 4 down. You got a typical. I would say this is a little bit tricky here. This is a little muddy because 91 is playing in the gap more than he is shaded the center or shaded the guard. I would still identify this as a 1 technique just of gap principle, and then you got a clear 3 technique on the strong side. So I would call this even looking at it, it's just going to be a little bit fuzzy. Let's say this is a zone play. I don't know the play yet, but let's say this is zone play. It's going to be a little bit different footwork for both guys. You're going to short step at center. You're probably going to a short step at that guard, and looking to your place I get, make sure nothing's coming there, but it just muddies the picture a little bit. So I hate when the defensive line does this, and I hate when they're playing a zero nose and they're tilted in the gap. It's almost impossible to block. But the first thing I always look at is alignment here because I believe everything is based off of what the defense is giving you. Based off of their alignment is what your technique is going to be based off of. So I think it's always important to identify those.
All right. As we run through.
Boom. I love this play. Like it doesn't work here because I mean, playing NFL defenses too, but just getting out hard reaching play side.
Right.
This isn't an easy block for Ragnow to make, but we can just look at his first step. Boom. He's so fast, man, and he has an advantage. And there's so many disadvantages to playing center, but one of the advantages that he does have is that he knows when the ball is being snapped because he's
Mm-hmm.
snapping the ball. So he's going
Right.
to be able to get a better. In theory, he should get a better first step than anybody. And if I'm nitpicking here, if I'm an offensive line coach, he can actually gain more ground with that first step and cover more ground. But he's so athletic and he has such a good time. And look how far he is already before everybody else. I mean, he's already reached 91 before the rest of the offensive linemen even get their first step in the ground. So it just shows a little bit of the advantages that you can have as a center, especially when you're as athletic as he is. And then he just stays play side and gets up there. So, like, again, even though it's not the biggest gain here, if you're just talking about the individual and his athletic ability and his ability as a football player, it's pretty incredible that he does this consistently.
Yeah, and I think the single most impressive, there's a couple of things, but the single most impressive thing about this play is that he comes off the ball, and right here he's leaning into the block that he has to make, right? Because it's basically a sideways track get off, however you want to phrase it. But just from like a body mechanics thing, that's what he's doing. And so he goes from here, where in terms of leverage, he has essentially none, but within one, two, so two steps, one step for each, he's fully transitioned his body. He's caught the nose tackle here and gotten himself exactly where he needs to be, and then maintains that all the way through the block. So this is super athletic. There's a ton of strength involved here, and that's a big dude, by the way. I forget what's his name again.
Derek Nottie.
Noddy. Yeah, I mean, he is well over 300 pounds himself. Like, that's just not an easy thing to do. You know how easy it would be for a guy who had less core strength and less balance to just be right here, already getting pushed into the backfield like that. It's very impressive.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, it's just what we've become accustomed to seeing. I think the thing with Frank Ragnow and now the Detroit Lions offensive line in general is that this has been the case for a very long time. I know they got hard knocks last year. They played better than a lot of people thought that they would. And then they go in and beat the reigning Super Bowl champions week one in their home field. And now everybody's talking about them a lot more. So I just want to hammer that point home. They've been this good for a very long time, especially Frank Ragnow. But back again, we got it. Now you're getting more regular, normal boxes here. You got a shade and a three tech. You're getting closer to the goal line here, so you're on the nine going in. So you're going to get some more conservative, normal base looks. So there's nothing too crazy here based off of alignment. Very typical, very standard, and that lets you, it doesn't make anything easier, but it's just much easier to identify and relate that to the rest of the offensive line because I would say 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, the center is going to be the quarterback up front. And most quarterbacks do not set protection. You might get a Tom Brady type guy. I know Patrick Mahomes doesn't. I know Jalen Hurts doesn't. So most quarterbacks don't set protections anymore. So the offensive line has a quarterback and it's the center. So just alignment, relaying the message to everybody, very easy when you get looks like this. Boom. So you get some motion and it's just over, which could change responsibility. But when you're this close to the end zone, man, normally it's just getting a hat on a hat, blocking it up, and they do a great job of doing that here. Especially like when you get the motion and then the linebacker shift. Normally on these positions, you're working to a linebacker. So look at the play side guys. Based off of alignment, you probably thought you were doubling back to 32 to start off. But as you get the shift, then boom, 32 comes play side. You're now looking back to working to 50. So that changes a little bit of their responsibility. And there's going to be a little bit of spillover here. 32, that's actually a great call defensively. But listen, like I said, when you're offensive line, you get a hat on the hat. Boom, you got the insert player here coming back 87, hat on the hat, touchdown. You can't do anything crazy. You can't muddle your responsibilities. Get a hat on the hat. Let those skill guys make plays. This is what they get paid millions for. But they do a great job here. And I got to give a little bit of love to the tight end as well, because tight ends normally don't get a lot of love in the run blocking game. But the tight ends and the wide receivers are just as important to making this play work, because, listen, the offensive line did a hell of a job here. We got a great hands on the backside. We got the backside guard in the center doing their job. We got a kick out here doing a great job right here at left guard. But if the tight end doesn't get this block and seal this off, that's probably a 1 yard gain, no gain. And I don't know what the down distance is, but that could be the difference between 3 and 7 points. So, hell of a job here by the offensive line as a whole, man. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say this is probably the second best, maybe it's arguably, debatably, the best and most well-rounded offensive line in the NFL right now. This is a perfect picture to display that.
hmm Yeah, I loved this, and you just saw this unfold live. This was a really big touchdown for the Lions, keeping them in the game in a pivotal moment. Um, and like you said, it just functions so well together. There is something here that you just can't replicate without experience together. That's one of the reasons that people talk about a consistency in terms of personnel on the offensive line. So right here, where the guard and Ragnow are taking on the two interior defensive linemen, um, this whole right side of the line comes together so effectively. So you got Sewell coming in and just picking up the left D tackle as he's sort of sliding into the play side, and just stops him in his tracks, which simultaneously allows the guard to slide over and take on the right defensive tackle and stop him from sliding into the play side. So like it's 3-on-2, but but then they also block the linebacker there as well, kind of coincidentally. But it's just like it's so well executed together, right? Like if all three of them aren't doing that, it just doesn't work. And then shout out to my guy Laporta, who people said couldn't block. All right. Okay. On to our last play here.
All right, yeah, basically why I'm here. But the thing that you should be cognizant of as an offensive lineman here is that you only have one linebacker in the box. So and I don't know if I've said this on here before, but the box is just from the outside hip of the right tackle to the outside hip of the left tackle. So anything on that, and then we'll consider like the lineman, the down lineman on the outside hip of the shoulder of the left tackle. We'll consider him in the box just because that's our responsibility. But that's what the box is. So normally you're going to have 2 to 3 linebackers in the box, but you only have one linebacker in the box here, which is 32. So you're probably going to expect some type of game, or at least a stunt or edge pressure here. Just those are the things that you should be going off in your head, though. Boom. As soon as you see one man in the box, expect some kind of game, or for them to show a game and bail out or switch over, maybe a rotation late. But be cognizant of some movement here. Boom. So you get in motion, which is going to change everything and bring that guy to the box. So you get the motion and shifts over, brings it to the box. But we can go back here a little bit. This is just a good job on a back block. These back blocks are very tough because, for one, these defensive linemen are so big, stout, and strong. Um, you're not going to have a lot of time to gain momentum, to garner any traction, to really move these guys. Very rarely do you see these guys get moved on these blocks. But holding the point of attack and not allowing them to shock or shed is the objective here. He does a good job. The aiming point, like I said earlier, the inside via the neck. You want to get on the inside via the neck and hold the point of attack primarily, or you would like to move him. But like I said, it's very hard to do that with that little bit of you're not going to have a lot of momentum to carry here. But I think he does a great job with his aiming point. Boom. His hat is exactly where it needs to be. And like I said earlier, look at his hands. His hands are inside of the defensive lineman hands. And then that's half of the battle. If we're talking about gaining that leverage, if your hands are inside, your hat is where it's supposed to be, then you can start to move these guys. And I think he does a solid job of getting a little bit of movement here. Like let's say 87 gets his block. That is a clear picture. You can go back a little bit, pause it there. Go ahead and then we'll run it, and I'll tell you when to stop it. The other way. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go for it. Um, So boom, right there. So you go back just a second, and then you'll see if he gets his block, 68 gets his block. Look how much the center and the guard have it walled off. There's a clear lane here.
Hmm.
If we can get
Right,
these
right.
two guys, we can get 87 and 68, which I mean, listen, like I said, it's the NFL. You're not going to get perfect every time, but highlighting Ragnow, this is what you want to see. Like I said, the aiming point's correct, the hand placement's correct, and if the other guys do their job, you have a clear lane and clear hole here, and uh, that's probably only a 5 or 6 yard game, but that's the level. That's what I try to explain to people, the difference in level between the NFL and college football. Is college football, that's probably still a 8, 9 yard game. You're probably still more athletic than they are as running back and linebacker, and you're going to be able to beat them if your offensive linemen just get in the way. But this is the difference between the NFL and college football. That's a really good picture to illustrate it right there.
Well, and I think the other thing is too, it depends on the runner that you have, right? In this case, it's David Montgomery, which means, he can reliably get what's blocked for him, and you don't necessarily expect more than that. But if you give a lane like that to an explosive player like DeAndre Swift, who they had before, or Jahmyr Gibbs, who they have now, like that could be dramatically more, right? So that always has an effect on it as well. But the other thing is, we could see other plays that, were more effective or more explosive from either a running play or a pass protection play standpoint. But it's harder to isolate exactly what Ragnow does well, because sometimes it's just him with his eyes up and he's doing the right thing, but there's not really anything to break down there. So as you go through, that's why sometimes he does a really nice job and it ends up being a short yardage gain or no gain, or whatever the case might be. But that's it for Frank Ragnow. So we'll be back very shortly with Penei Sewell as well. Remember, you can find Kyron at Kyron Samuels on Twitter. You can find me at TheMaxDean. You can find us at Defiant Takes FB on Twitter, and all our written work over at DefiantTakesFootball.com. Now, aside from just these two offensive linemen for the Lions, we have a backlog of brick wall breakdowns, which go back to even a free agency last year. It's got guys like Isaac Sumalo, Orlando Brown Jr., and then a host of offensive line prospects. So if you're looking at some of these younger guys and what they did in college, you can go check that out too. All right, Kyron, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again very shortly.